I'm not going to re-say all that.
We are now live.
Okay, thank you. So I will call the meeting to order then. And before we adopt the agenda, I'm going to ask each member of Town's administration in attendance today to introduce themselves.
I am Riley Weldon. I am the Acting Manager of Planning and Development. I am also sitting in as CPC Secretary today.
I'm Mike Stasiak, Community Development Engineer and the Engineering File Manager for this file, or for 205 Stewart Creek Rise.
I'm Nathan Development Planner.
Okay, thank you all. My name is Whitney Smithers, and I will be the chair for this meeting, for this hearing, and all questions and comments should be directed through me. I will take this moment too to have the board members introduce themselves, starting on my right.
Spencer Thackeray, public member.
Brian Talbot, public member.
Florian Youngin, public member.
Jeff Hillsad, council member.
Joanna McCallum, council appointee. Thanks.
Thank you all. And I would ask Mr. Weldon, acting as the secretary today, are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda as provided?
There are no additions or changes. However, there is an amendment to the previous meeting minutes that we will need to address.
Okay, I'll get to that when we get to the minutes part. So looking at the agenda then, I will move that the commission adopt the agenda as presented. Those in favor? Okay, thank you. And now I'll ask about the amendment to the minutes of the November 29th meeting. Or sorry, February 21st meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is one amendment to the meeting minutes. I'll just bring it up here. There has been one addition, and it is under the development permit application. What was missing from your agenda package was the second sentence here. I'll just read it. The public representative, Spencer Thackeray, declared a pecuniary interest because of his employment with Basecamp, along with having an investment in the project 1 Silvertip Trail, and left the meeting at 2:05 p.m. That is all.
Okay, so to the commission, are there any comments on the minutes as with the amendment that is proposed? No? Okay, so I will move that the commission approve the minutes of the February 21st, 2024 meeting as amended there and noted by Mr. Weldon. Those in favor? Okay, it's carried. Thank you. Okay, so then we have one item on the agenda today, one application. Administration will present the matter that's before the commission. Then commission members can ask questions of clarification of administration. Then at our discretion, and if the commission so chooses, we can ask the applicant to make a presentation and answer questions. And I will just remind the audience that all communication is to be respectful and on the topic of the application, and that questions are directed through the chair. So now I will ask Mr. Gravel to make a presentation. Oh, sorry, I did this last time too.
It's okay.
So before consideration of the item, Councillors McCallum and Hillstad.
So I'm on the board of directors of CCHC, and this topic could raise a reasonable apprehension of bias on the part of CPC if I remain on the panel, and so I'll be recusing myself from this review.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say the same thing, but I'll say it out as well. So I'm also on the board of directors of CCHC. So as this could raise a reasonable apprehension of bias on the part of the CPC, if I remain on the panel, I will also be recusing myself from this review. So.
Okay. Thank you both.
And have that noted in the minutes, I guess, so.
It will be noted
We don't
in
have
the
it amended
minutes.
again.
Yeah. And then I'll just ask at this time, because this is the only item on the agenda, are you guys going to be coming back to at the end, or is this it? Okay.
I'll be watching from home.
Excellent. Okay, so now I will ask Mr. Gravel to come forward with his presentation on the application.
Great. All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the CPC, anybody watching at home. My name is Nathan Gravel. I'm a development planner for the town of Canmore, and I'll be presenting this item today to you. I will begin with a bit of brief site context. The site is located at 205 Stewart Creek Rise. The slide on the screen shows the location of the site relative to the area. Adjacent to the site is multi-unit residential, primarily in the form of stacked townhomes. There's also a little park close by that you can see on the screen, and there's also the town's pathway system that you can also see on the screen that connects to the site. Moving on to a summary of the application. The application proposes a comprehensively designed multi-unit residential development in the form of 2 stacked townhouse buildings for a total of 18 units. All of these units will form part of Canmore Community Housing's vital home stock, which is below market housing. 7 variances to the land use bylaw are required. Administration supports the proposed variances as well as the proposed development. I'll obviously get into those reasons in my presentation. Looking at high-level direction first, the municipal development plan and the Stewart Creek area structure plan inform the site. A goal of the town's municipal development plan is to encourage the provision of affordable housing, which this development clearly aligns with. Along with this goal, section 5.2.3 of the municipal development plan suggests or guides that the development authority should consider variances to encourage affordable housing throughout the town, such as variances to density, height, parking, architectural design, and so forth. The Stewart Creek Area Structure Plan states the purpose of this area is for a comprehensively planned residential community that provides a range of housing types and tenures. Again, this development aligns with that purpose. Moving on, the proposed use is for a comprehensively designed multi-unit residential development. That's a discretionary use in the R2ASC district. Also mentioned, the form of the development is 2 stacked townhouse buildings for a total of 18 units. Having a look at the built form of the development, again, there's 2 buildings, each with a varying number of stories from 2 to 3 stories. The design reflects a more contemporary mountain architecture look with distinct building shapes, reduced eave lines, and the application of materials like Corten steel, for example. The site is laid out with 1 building to the north, 1 building to the south, and then sort of a connection between the 2 with a walkway running east-west. There are amenity areas, 1 adjacent to the east property line and 1 along Stewart Creek Rise. 10 of the units have garages, which are highlighted with the black arrows. Most units have their main entrance on the ground floor, which are highlighted by the black triangles. There are 4 of those that are accessed on the 2nd floor through the walkway, and those are highlighted by the blue arrows, or the blue triangles, sorry. Looking at the variances required for the application, there are 7 required. They're all listed up on the screen. Variance to maximum density, building height, minimum yard setback, visitor parking, maximum building projections, design requirements for driveways, and acceptable building wall materials. Some of these are considered by administration to be minor. They've been outlined in the staff report. There's a fulsome analysis there, so I'm only going to cover the first 4, but certainly if the commission has any questions about the last 3, I'm happy to go through those as well. So beginning with density, the applicant is seeking a 20% variance to density to allow for 18 units instead of 15. The town's land use bylaw does contain a density bonusing section, which allows for obviously a density bonus, as it sounds, up to 30% for development that includes affordable housing. The development obviously meets this, given it's all affordable housing, so it clearly qualifies for the bonus, and as a result of that, administration supports the variance. Obviously, there's a community benefit here with increasing the amount of affordable housing. Looking at the variance to maximum building height, the applicant is requesting an extra meter and 17 centimeters in extra height. That's 11.2% variance. The variance in administration's opinion does not appear to be unreasonable with respect to views, access to light, or privacy. For example, as you can see up on the slide there, the buildings do step down as they move towards the east and west property lines. The buildings are also substantially under height in certain areas of the roof, which is a benefit to adjacent development. So given this, administration is supportive of the proposed variance. Looking at the variance to minimum yard setback, the applicant is requesting to be 1.4 meters closer to the east property line, which results in a 46.7% variance. It's a rather large number, but administration doesn't feel that it's an unreasonable variance given that the impacts on views, access to light, privacy are, in administration's opinion, minor. So for example, the encroaching portion of the building is a single story. Its use is as a mechanical room. So again, you're not seeing somebody living there looking out their window directly into the adjacent development. Given it's a single story, it's not blocking views, that sort of thing. Also, it's worth noting that non-comprehensively designed multi-unit residential developments or some of the other uses allowed in the district would technically be allowed to be up to 1.5 meters from the side property line, and they would be up to 2.5 stories. So again, looking at the trade-off there, that would have a much greater impact on the adjacent development, and it would be compliant with the land use bylaw. Finally, the variance to minimum visitor vehicle parking, the applicants required to provide 2 stalls. They're proposing none. In administration's opinion, the variance is not unreasonable given that 10 of the units contain garages and driveways, so those units will be able to accommodate guests. The remaining 8 units would, if it was just an 8-unit townhouse development, be required to provide 1 visitor parking stall. Administration feels there's ample space in front of the development along Stewart Creek Rise to absorb that 1 stall. A notice of application was posted on the site for 10 days. We received feedback from 1 resident. They expressed some concern about the look of the development in that it didn't quite fit the character of development in the areas or in the area of Stewart Creek. There are private architectural controls registered on title that each landowner has to comply with, as well as this landowner. Prior to the release of the development permit, the applicant is required to obtain approval from that authority for those private architectural controls. And they've already engaged that authority and are working in good faith with them. So the applicant doesn't believe there's anything that will result in any major changes to the development, since they've already had some initial conversations. But If you do have any questions on that, obviously the applicant is present here today and they can speak to that. So, finally, administration recommends that the Canmore Planning Commission approve PL 2023-0389. The project offers a significant social benefit. The variances, in administration's opinion, are not unreasonable, and the town's municipal development plan gives direction to support variance, or at least consider them as a way to incentivize affordable housing. Should the Commission decide to approve the application, draft conditions of approval have been prepared and are set out in Schedule A. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions the Commission may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gravel. Are there any questions of the Development Authority? Mr. Talbot.
Mr. Gravel, 46.7%. I can't find in the authority, the variance authority, where the limits are for setbacks. I can see where it is for heights. Is there anything I'm missing in that?
So that's a great question, Mr. Talbot. The land use bylaw does limit the powers of CPC for setbacks for 20% for general applications. However, and I'll bring it up on the screen here so you can see it, the Development Authority for applications where a significant social benefit is offered, such as affordable housing, has the authority to grant a larger variance. So I can bring that up if it's helpful.
Yes, that would be helpful. Thank you.
It's also, just while he's bringing it up, in the report at the top of page 3, it references section 1.14.3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got it up here.
To be increased where the proposed development provides an extraordinary net benefit to the community.
Is that satisfactory, Mr. Talbot, or would you like to?
Is there a guideline for what is the net benefit? Or like the gain? I'm just trying to assess this from, what is a benefit and what's not a benefit.
Well, I think the benefits outlined in the municipal development plan as affordable housing.
Okay. I had one other question, or a couple other questions here. Parking. Your planning supports no visitor parking. And there was a comment made during the presentation that there's ample parking, the way I heard it, and if I misheard, I apologize, in front of the project. People do visit, they don't go into driveways, they don't go into garages. There has been a push in that area by engineering to restrict on-street parking for residents and their guests. Is engineering signing off on the zero visitor parking?
So the engineering department is in support of the variance, but I think we would need to be careful in terms of looking at each development as a case by case for what would be granted a variance for visitor parking. In this case, you have a development that offers purely affordable housing, which is a significant social benefit. So if you were an adjacent development looking for something similar, an apples to apples comparison would be as if you were offering all affordable housing as part of that. So just being careful to, the suggestion here is not only is there the capacity, but there's a significant benefit, community benefit offered here. And as part of those two pieces, that's where the support is coming from.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, Mr. Gravel. However, their projects need to be complementary to other projects within the area. If engineering's on side with this, given their position on other projects, it's not just one or two, it's every project in that area, then I'm fine with your answer. Okay, so that's good. If engineering, you answered, I believe that engineering supports this, that's good. One other question on parking and access then, does engineering support the rear drive changes and the access into the back laneway as well?
So I would, we have a member of our engineering team here today, and I think he can better answer your questions.
Through the chair to Mr. Talbot, yes, we do support the changes in the back for the access.
Okay. I believe that was all for planning.
Okay, and I would just want to point out that the recommendations are coming from the town. I don't want to attribute them to specific departments. It's a town recommendation and it's a development authority recommendation. So I just want to put some context around that. Are there any other questions for the development officer? Mr. Youngman.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel, for your presentation. I had a similar question about, the reason for these kind of applications to come to CPC. And I was wondering if that's due to the variance power of the development of the planner, because we know, these CCHC projects are going to have extremely high sustainability screening scores. There's obviously, a huge benefit to the community. So, what is the reason for bringing the projects to CPC?
That's a great question. So the density bonusing section specifically references the Canmore Planning Commission's ability to grant the density variance. So that's why it was brought to Planning Commission.
Okay. On another point, the comment about Core-10 siding being considered like non-traditional or not conforming to the architectural design standards, I would suggest that planning could re-evaluate that position. I think there's other examples in Smith Creek where Core-10 has been used, also at the Malcolm Hotel. I think there's an argument to be made that it's a material that naturally patinas, like other natural building materials, say wood or whatever, which we accept as being part of the architecture vernacular. And you could also maybe make an argument that it somehow ties in with the mining heritage of the community. So that's just a comment I'd like to make there.
No, I appreciate the feedback, and I think we do recognize that it is a high-quality material. It's just a strict reading of the bylaw triggers the variance.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the development officer? No? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Is there a desire to hear from the applicant?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. And do we want a presentation or move to questions?
I'm fine moving to questions, but
Pardon me?
I'm fine moving to questions.
Okay. We'll just go right to questions then. Or did you want to?
No, if they have a presentation.
Did you have a presentation? Okay. Well, let's do the presentation then.
Let me
Yeah.
address my questions.
Can you hear me now? My name's Chris Matthew. I'm the development manager with CCH.
And I'm Leah Lonas. I'm the lead architect of this project. Just to give a bit of history on the site, this used to be 2 parcels with the tip of the triangle intended to be a public park. The parcel also has a public pathway on it that was intended to connect that park to the surrounding green spaces of the neighborhood. And I'll talk more about that pathway at the very end of this presentation. Architecturally, we're introducing a large amount of semi-public amenity spaces, both on the ground floor and on the raised pedestrian walkway that Nathan mentioned earlier. That gives us a really good connection into the public playground to one end, but also fosters a sense of community within the development. As you can see, we're working with 3-story and 2-story blocks in order to get in variety, sunlight, and a sense of pedestrian scale into the development. And here you can see how we're articulating the prominent corner of that site. This is how we're intending to connect the semi-public amenity space into the upper boardwalk. And here in our plans, you can see how the 3-story bedrooms three-story townhouses drop off, especially on the third floor, with the two-story blocks allowing a lot of sunlight and views into the space. This is a view of the alleyway behind Stewart Creek Rise, and you can see here how we're focusing on pedestrian activity, vibrancy, and variety within this development. Here are some unit layouts that we're working with, and Chris here can talk about how that caters to the needs of the end users.
Yeah, so the way that we kind of tailor this development was towards obviously newer families with CCH. We have an ever-growing wait list on the ownership and on the rental side, which is grown by a couple hundred families in the last several months, which is, you know, good and bad news for us overall. So the way that we kind of looked at this was who's going to be moving into these ownership units. A lot of the, at least prospective buyers for the 3-bedroom row housing units are going to be likely, you know, younger families. It could be first-time, second-time home buyers that are looking to, you know, get into a decent-sized unit, have a separate garage area, and be able to have a space that they can kind of call theirs with a nice outdoor amenity area as well as a good kind of community makeup overall, which is why we kind of emphasize the shared kind of courtyard area above and below. The 2-bedroom units are following a similar demographic, obviously maybe a slightly smaller family, just, you know, noting kind of single floor living. We are really trying to emphasize, call it sound attenuation, between these two units, or specifically the stacked 2-bedroom units, in the interest of not, you know, hearing a lot of your neighbors above you, which is a bit different from our methodology on our 3-bedroom units. But essentially we are again targeting, you know, younger families, young professionals, people who are looking to get a home in Canmore that is, you know, beautiful, fits into the overall demographic, but is also below market and affordable.
Going back to the public sidewalk, there is sort of two ways we can move forward with this. The first one would be to relocate that public sidewalk. This solution has been worked out by the McElhaney team and vetted through the Town of Canmore Engineering Department. The benefits of that would be that we are replacing a piece of public infrastructure. However, given the history of the site and the rezoning, it might have a questionable value to the community as a whole. We can also move forward without this piece of sidewalk, which would basically bring the alley in line with the rest of the alley. This is the only piece of the alley that's even considering having a sidewalk at all. It would improve the affordability of the CCH units, which is, it just comes down to construction cost, of course. And the other piece is it would align us with our goal of having CCH patrons being the recipient of public benefits more so than the source overall. That being said, we're very happy to move forward either way, and we're prepared to move forward either way. In designing this, we've come to realize that this might be more of a political decision than an architectural decision, which is why we're seeking some clarity from you all today. With that in mind, thank you for your time and consideration today.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the applicant? You always go first. Anybody else?
Someone else.
Before I get to Mr. Talbot.
Yes, can you please walk me through, let me see if I have the drawing number here. Something tells me it was A1, there it is, A101. I'm just trying to get a sense of the side yard between the east side of your project and the adjacent site directly to these, so call it the meadows. So just looking at that one building in the, I think it was A101, just trying to figure that one out because it was hard to see the context on that one drawing in the package.
At this edge here?
Yeah, so you have on
Yeah.
the A101 package some shaded areas in the submission that are pink.
Oh yeah, the pink areas is where we highlighted the encroachment on the setback line.
Okay.
Yeah, we highlighted all kind of variances in pink so people can
Yeah.
get a visual of what the variance actually implies. So
Okay.
this is basically reflective of the mechanical room. A portion of this mechanical room would encroach on the setback line. And then a small portion of this exterior walkway and the storage unit underneath would also encroach into that setback requirement.
And what is the height of that area that is encroaching is more where I'm gonna, my first part of the question.
They're both 1 stories only. So the mechanical room is a 1-story building, and then the walkway, so these storage units are 1 story, and then there's an open exterior walkway on top of it. So So it's 1 story plus railing.
Okay, and then one more question. Do you have a lighting plan?
We do in the DP submittal package, yes.
Okay, which we don't see here. All I'm trying to determine is if the buildings are shifting closer or more easterly, are they shining, is there any lights on that eastern end of your project that may be shining into people's bedrooms or things like that?
We are taking great care in the exterior lighting to not shine into any of the bedrooms, but if there is a concern about the adjacent sites, we can easily relocate lights to not make that a concern anymore, if you'd like to see that as a condition or something like that.
I just encourage you to,
Yeah.
given
No, but there's a
lighting
lot
in
of-
people's bedrooms are
Yeah.
Yeah.
weaker.
I think the strategy for that particular stairwell egress on that corner would be to do stairwell level lighting versus top-down lighting, just to kind of get away from that effect on the neighboring buildings, as long as it meets our illumination calculations for egress.
And it may be fine, I can't recall what the town's criteria is for height off the ground in terms of some of these lights. So it may be sufficient, it's just that I encourage the applicant to look at that so that there isn't complaints. So, those are my questions.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Any other questions of the applicant? Spencer, Mr. Thackeray?
Thank you for the presentation. I did have a question about that mechanical room and what it would really be included. Just with the layout of the units, it seems like the 2 bedrooms or the multi-level units with the garage are on that end. And in the photos or in the drawings that you showed with the unit plans, they show a mechanical room kind of in the back. Is this then central mechanical, so would then be occupied quite frequently by maintenance or someone else? Or is it just typical residential mechanical room that will be there for what?
So the intention of the mechanical room is just like you said. It will be a central system for a central boiler for in-floor heating. Every unit does have its own mechanical unit for, its HRV and the inevitable meter stack water meter that'll be in it. Additionally, inside the mechanical rooms that you see on both sides will be a meter for gas meters and electrical meters. So it's a bit of a combination room for each of those. It will likely not be occupied by individual residents. It'll be done on maintenance access typically. So no, it won't be a common space for the future owners.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Youngden?
Thank you for your presentation. I was intrigued by the sort of like public stairway leading up into that internal courtyard, and I was wondering if you could explain a little bit more about how you envision that space being used.
So this space up here is pulling double duty, really triple duty. It is the primary entrance for 3 of the 2-bedroom units. It is an amenity space for the residents, so sort of a semi-public idea here. And you see how the landscaping works with these trees growing through these gaps. And it also, it does provide really easy access for the 3-bedroom units out into the playground unit, into the neighborhood playground, knowing that this is really catered to address the missing middle, to address families. We felt that an easy access there is beneficial. And ultimately, we're fostering something along the lines of a community feel. It's not intended to host, say, large barbecues or anything like that. It's more intended to facilitate the casual conversations with your neighbors. On the ground floor, it also covers all of our bicycle parking and promotes that use of transportation over cars.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I could imagine community garden up there, or even like the community barbecue kind of event going on. Is that something that you're trying to discourage?
Having a full-on neighborhood barbecue, we don't want to run into a situation where some neighbors get together and then others would be having a conflict with that.
Right.
So it is more encouraging the casual conversation or meeting someone for a cup of coffee or something like that, as opposed to having 18 families gathering together. That kind of informed the sizes and will inform the furniture layout. But we're hoping ultimately the best case scenario would be if it takes on a bit of a life of its own.
One last question. The three-story units, top story, are those lofted ceilings or flat ceiling?
Our truss system is a scissor truss system, so they are lofted, but not to the full degree of the roof.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? Yeah, sure, Mr. Talbot.
You had one question at the end that you're hoping for some clarity from CPC on, which was that pathway sidewalk.
That's right.
That's news to me as to, I don't know if we're in a position actually, are we, to weigh in on that?
I would ask, I think at this point, if there's questions of the applicant related to that, and then I would want to bring the development officer back up to speak to it, and then weighing in on it probably when we get to debating the motion. Does that make sense? Okay. Mr. Thackeray, did you have another question?
I'd just like to know a little bit more about the Corten steel. I have had experience with it, and when it starts to naturally rust and water kind of runs over it, it can leave leaching marks. And also, especially in this render, it's shown directly above a car or a parking stall.
Yeah.
Has that been considered at all?
So the Corten steel is something we would like to pick up, since it is something you actually find in the directly adjacent developments as well. And it's just a nice, one of these breadcrumb ideas that you can pick up, creates a bit of a cohesive sense. There are Corten steel products out there that arrive with the patina process already completed and sealed, so they don't leak and stain. Corten leaks are pretty significant, especially on anything porous like a concrete paver. Like it's almost impossible to get out. So what we would use on site would be a product that's finished, its patina process sealed, and comes with a, I don't know, several years of warranty.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Follow-up questions for the development officer? I have one. I'll start. Talk to us about the sidewalk in the alley.
That is news to the development officer and I assume municipal engineer. We are under the understanding that there was no request for feedback, that the design shown was what is proposed. So we too are not clear as to why further direction is required. We, through what has been supported, I assume would have already answered that question.
Okay, so for clarification then, just for my own understanding, the pathway in the alley is part of the approval that, and the applicant didn't raise concern or comment about it with the development officer until today? Is that, I just want to
Yes.
be clear on, okay.
That's my recollection, and that what you're seeing in the package is what is supported and proposed, and we're not aware of any outstanding questions directed to us in terms of what not doing that or needing any clarification on that, hence why the application is before you today. Otherwise, that would have been resolved prior to bringing it to the meeting.
Okay, and was it, I'll go to questions. Mr. Yangden, you look like you're ready to go.
Yeah, so I mean, in previous applications, CPC has sort of made some decisions on the fly about amendments. Can administration give advice whether this is something they would encourage us to consider at this point, or is it, would it not be supported? Would you not support removing that sidewalk?
I think we probably need a minute to confer, myself and the municipal engineer, Mike Stasiak, on that piece before responding to that, to ensure that we give a recommendation that's well informed.
And if I could just follow up on that, I guess if there was an amendment made if you guys, hash it out in the next week or two, can we make it in a way that the development officer, it's to the satisfaction of the development officer rather than, the project having to come back to CPC?
So what I might suggest is we'll see if there are any other questions for the development officer, and then we will take a break and allow for that discussion to happen with the administration and the applicant. I will say I was kind of surprised to hear it characterized as a political issue, because I don't actually believe that that is a political issue. I think it's part of the function of the project. So let's see if there are other questions of the development officer, and then I'll suggest we take a break and allow for that consultation to happen. Does that work
Sure.
for you, Mr. Gravel?
That works for me.
Okay, are there any other questions of the development officer then? Nope. All right, well then, I will suggest at this point that we take a break till, is 10 minutes enough? Do you?
Sure.
Probably? Does that work for, okay. So it's 2:43. I will move that we break until 2:53. All in favor? Yeah, okay, carried. Thanks, everybody. Back in 10. Okay, thanks. So we are back from the break. And I believe we'd wrapped up on questions from the applicant and questions from the development officer. So I'll move the recommendation just to put this out there. Mr. Gravel, can I ask that you put the recommendation back up on the screen, just so people can follow along? So the recommendation is that Canmore Planning Commission approve PL 2023-0389, subject to the conditions of approval set out in Schedule A, which is attached to the report. And I will now invite commission members to speak to the motion.
I do have one more question for Simon.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing about that, the issue that we...
okay, sure. So I'll ask the development officer to come up and...
I will be deferring to Mr. Weldon to provide planning's response on the
Okay.
matter.
So just bear with me as I fulfill two duties here, needing to share my screen, and I will also share the presentation so that the folks at home can see what's on the screen as well. So administration's position is that the application is and recommendation is presented as complete, and we do not recommend any changes. The reason for this, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. So what's on the screen is an aerial photo of the area, and as you can see, there is municipal reserve that these linear municipal reserve parcels with a pathway coming from the south. This connects to a pathway further that is adjacent behind these residents here, and you can see the pathway here. That curves up through these linear municipal reserve parcels and crosses the street. You can see it here, and it enters the back lane of where the subject parcel is right here. This is where the pathway terminates. As you can see, it does not continue on north through this parcel here. It terminates here. There is a sidewalk that currently exists on the site. You can't see it very well. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This was constructed when this was a municipal reserve parcel before the designation changed to accommodate this site for CCH. And what is being proposed now is that the sidewalk, which will facilitate folks who come this way, accessing through the back alley to access to not only the street, but to this MR and park space over here. So the sidewalk actually is fundamental to the functioning of the pathway system, and so we recommend that it remain.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Weldon. Any follow-up questions of administration? No? Oh, sorry, Mr. Talbot.
I noticed in the conditions that there was a comment regarding the construction management plan being a condition. Is there any other items on the checklist that need to be added, or is that the only outstanding item on the development permit checklist that kind of needs to be? I just want to make sure it was complete.
In terms of the Schedule A, any additional information that's required? Yes. It's complete.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, so now we'll go back to the motion. The recommendation is moved. Can you put that back up on the screen, Riley? And are there any commission members that want to speak to the application? Mr. Youngin.
Thank you. I'm more than happy to support this application. I think everyone knows the benefits to the community. I think all the variances are well justified by the MDP, the Vital Homes. So yeah, I'm happy the project has come to fruition, and basically want to congratulate everyone that's worked on it. And yeah, I think it's a nice opportunity just to realize or recall that all these units have real impact on families, helping people get established in Canmore. And so, you know, it's a real impact for real people. And so it's great that this is happening. One of the specific things about the project that I enjoyed is that the semi-public courtyard in the center. I think fostering a sense of community within the project is a really nice touch. And I think that, you know, with CCHC being a sort of a non-market developer, gives that organization opportunity to develop projects in a way that maybe the private sector wouldn't. Maybe invest a little bit more in alternative models of housing, or encouraging community within smaller developments. And so I would encourage CCHC to continue along that sort of trajectory, and look to establish projects that are maybe a little bit different from what the private sector is offering. I think even, you know, something like an ideas competition or architectural design competition would be one way of bringing out unique ideas, because these projects are going to be part of the fabric of the community for 75 years, maybe 100 years. You know, they're going to be around a long time. And so if it takes an extra couple of months to do, say, an architectural competition to get a really great product, I think that's well worth it. So that's what I have to say. I'm happy to support this project today.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? All right, so then it's been moved that CPC approve PL 2023-0389, subject to the conditions in Schedule A. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay. So then moving on with the agenda. That I have to find. There is no other planning business on the agenda. To the secretary, I'm just going to confirm when the next scheduled meeting is.
The next scheduled meeting is April 17th.
Okay, thank you. And then with that, I will move that the commission adjourn the March 20th, 2024 meeting of the Canmore Planning Commission. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Okay, thank you, everyone.